Pringle was having a good time on his first date with this girl. Eventually, she said she needed to go to the bathroom. After 20 minutes of waiting, Pringle went to check on her, but she was nowhere to be found. When Pringle went home, he saw his date on the news. She was wandering around the street, hammered to shit, and started asking the reporter where the Care Bears were. She told the reporter she was with a guy earlier that was going to make her a slave in the mini mines. She said the Care Bears were the only ones that could save her. Pringle definitely didn't think he'd done anything bad enough to require Care Bear intervention.
The weirdest phone call Sid ever got was when a random person called and said,
"Hi, this is Pandora from Pornhub. You owe us $112 from watching white amateur blonde girls getting brutally fucked. Please put your payment onto..."
But Sid said,
I don't watch porn.
She said,
"Oh, is this not Civil Spider?"
He said,
No.
then she said,
"Oh, I apologize for this mix-up. I'm hoping this won't happen again. Have a good day, sir."
When the call ended, Sid screamed to his friend Civil Spider.
Civil, why are we watching porn?
He scared the living shit out of him.
The dumbest excuse Pringle ever heard was in first grade. This kid in his class was absent for an entire week and didn't have them excused. The teacher asked him why he wasn't there for a week, and the kid said, "Me and my dad, we're on Mars fighting aliens." Everyone in class thought he was telling the truth, so everyone piled praise on him. Ah, kids.
Sweet Commando's dad once had a massive party at their house, and at that party, his dad had a bit too much to drink and stripped naked. Rather than keep his nudity in the house, he kicked the fence panel down and ran through their neighbor's garden. Sweet Commando really liked his neighbors, so the whole thing made him cringe. That's why the best part was the phone call the next morning between his dad and the neighbors, talking about his drunk antics.
Civil Spider was in a hospital once where he saw a guy just walk around in circles at random. After a few minutes of that, he went over to his wife and scratched his butt for several minutes. After he got tired of that, he put his hand up to his nose and smelled it. He did this several times. Eventually, he turned around and saw that Civil Spider was looking, so he walked a few steps away and did it again.
So there was this one girl who Salty Squid thought would be super fun to spark a friendship with, and was super nervous about starting a conversation with her. One day, he found her standing alone, so he went up to her. In a dead serious voice, he said,
"I know you're not hot. It's because I'm your biggest fan."
She just walked away and didn't speak to him for a few days. Later, they started talking again, and now they're best friends. Zaraganba and his friends were once practicing parkour in a state park one afternoon. One of his friends noticed how good Zaraganba was and told him he should try doing parkour on top of a building like they do on the internet. So for some reason, they decided to go to the tallest building in the city, catch the elevator to the top floor, and stand out on the edge. Zaraganba looked over the edge. He must have been 500 feet up. He grabbed the side of the building and then dangled his whole body over the edge. When he came back to safety, his friends were shocked. They didn't think he would actually do it. He never did it again though. It was insanely dangerous.
Melissa and her sister had a weird babysitter when she was 6. One night, her baby sister was being put to bed. However, she was having a hard time falling asleep. Melissa and her 3-year-old sister were picking on each other while their 9-year-old sister was flirting with the babysitter. So we set up some chairs in a circle with the backs inwards, sat Melissa and her 2 sisters in them, tied them up, and told them to listen while he serenaded their little sister. The song started off with the line, go to sleep, little goober. Melissa and her sisters were laughing hard, which made their little sister laugh too. Their babysitter continued singing, your siblings are annoying. I wonder if your mom has duct tape. Melissa and her sisters continued to laugh, but oddly enough, their little sister fell asleep. He untied them and said that he was surprised the song actually worked.
One day, Princess Proton was at a small mall with her mum and sister. Her mum told them that she had to go to Victoria's Secret and that they could wait on a bench nearby. While they waited, Princess Proton and her sister saw 2 women arguing about a discounted bra. It was normal until one woman threw a punch, and then it was a full-on fist fight. Their mum got them the hell out of there. That night it was on the news, and Princess Proton and her sister still laugh about it to this day.
When Doopy was in 8th grade, she agreed to go on a date with a boy for Valentine's Day. When she met him at the cinema, things got awkward when she realized he had brought his whole family with him. His mom asked him, "Why would you go out with a skinny girl like her?" She'd get a wider girl who has a better appetite. Doopy insisted that she has a great appetite. She just doesn't get fat easily. Then his brother started accusing her of stealing soda from him at school. Her date and his family gave her the most evil glare. Needless to say, she never saw him again.
One day, Sybil Spider wanted to give his friend Doopy a nice compliment, so he walked up to her and said,
"You're such a beautiful bimbo."
Uncomfortable, Doopy thanked him, but then asked,
Do you even know what a bimbo is?
he said,
Yeah, a woman with a sexy and attractive body.
then Doopy said,
Yeah, that's part of what it means, but it also means that the woman is empty-headed and would have sex with anyone without even thinking about it. A slut is a simple way to put it.
At first, Sybil Spider didn't see it that way because he just thought that bimbo was a normal word for female. It took him a few days to finally understand that bimbo was a word that women don't like to be called and apologized. Doopy forgave him because it was just a big misunderstanding.
Up once saw a woman in the clothes store trying on pants, which wouldn't be so unusual if she was using the changing rooms, but she wasn't in the changing rooms. In the middle of the store, she'd take some pants off the rack, pull up her skirt, and shimmy into the pants. When they didn't fit, she would throw them on the ground without hanging them back up. The worst part of it all was that she wasn't wearing underpants. He could see her entire downstairs squeezing into jeans that were clearly too small for her. It was super gross.
When he was 14, Hellbent was a regular in physical therapy because his knee would just dislocate randomly. Most of the staff were older and nice, but one day, Hellbent saw a cutie in sweats and a blue shirt. Hellbent decided to start flirting with every Chuck Norris joke he knew. That actually worked, and he eventually found out they went to the same church, and they grew closer to each other from there. It took months before Hellbent asked her out, but he did, and it worked. 5 years later, they're planning to move in together.
On the day before a huge test during school, Princess's boyfriend was worried about her, so he offered her some dirty deeds to help calm her down. As the two settled into bed to get naughty, he whispered, "Talk dirty to me," into her ear. Because Princess had been studying for so long, her mind could think of nothing but her studies. So instead of sexy talk, she blurted out random information about the human nervous system. After a moment of awkward silence, he laughed and said, "If I'm getting on your nerves, you should have said something." The two settled on watching a movie and cuddling together instead.
MKLM worked for a boring insurance company when his boss came up to him one day. He told MKLM something surprisingly interesting. It was something that probably wasn't too interesting to the average person, but in a boring insurance office, it was kind of cool. His boss told him he just wanted him to sing country music to his plants and fish so they would grow better and stay healthy. And you know what? MKLM got some good bonuses for it.
Ghost Toast was an honors English class that only had 10 people in it. Early in the year, he mentioned eating people as a good source of nutrition if it's needed for survival. So he was already jokingly labeled as a cannibal. One day, they were having a discussion about a book and a character who was in danger, and someone said, "They would have killed him and beat him up," not realizing the order in which they said it. So in mockery, another student said, "Yeah, because we just like to beat up dead bodies." Without thinking, Ghost Toast said,
"Of course, you gotta tenderize that meat."
The room went silent, aside from his laugh.
Right, so I was walking through the market with my mum. I was about 7 or 8, something like that. And I was getting pretty frustrated all day. I was just in a bad mood, the sun wasn't out and I was sweating slightly. It was a horrible cataclysmic day, nothing could go right. So my mum and I walked through this really condensed, packed market walkway, full of people. You could barely take a step in any direction. It was just crowd mayhem. And so coming through the lane was this woman in a wheelchair. And again, I was a huge shitbag. And so when the lady in the wheelchair finally wheeled directly in front of me and I wouldn't move, and I was trying, but I couldn't. And I was just like, oh, this is so annoying. And my mum was like yanking on me like, come on, move for her, move. And so I looked up at my mum and I said, look, it's not my fault she's in a wheelchair. Very loudly. Everyone just stopped. Everyone around me just stopped and stared at me. My mom took out a hand and slapped me across the face. And god damn it, man, I deserved that. I had no idea what I was saying. The woman in the wheelchair looked mortified. You probably ruined her fucking day. So I not only deserved a slap, I needed to be shot into space to learn my lesson. Every time I think back on it, I just want to go back in time, snap young Dolan's legs off, and put him in a wheelchair and be like, alright, do you understand what you did wrong now? Okay? Telling her this is not your fault. But because when you can't walk, little Dolan, it's not very fun now, is it? You giant cock. One day while Tolop and Spincis were hanging out watching Animu, Tolop's ex, who had previously cheated on him, knocked on Tolop's door. Tolop answered it. Before he could say anything, Spincis looked at her and said, "You're the bitch!" Spincis grabbed her by the hair, dragged her to the grass, started beating the crap out of her. Then Spincis came back inside and took a shower. Tolop hasn't seen his ex since. When Doopy was in science class, she and her friends sat at the back of the room. One day, while they were doing nothing, Doopy and her friends heard a strange drilling sound coming from the other side of the wall. Doopy told her teacher, but she didn't believe it and just thought Doopy was playing a prank. But she sure believed Doopy when a huge sledgehammer came through the wall seconds later. All 5 students in the back row were scared for their lives and got absolutely covered in dust and plaster. They never found out who was responsible, and Doopy's teacher still believes Doopy had something to do with it. The school did nothing about it, so for the rest of the year, the classroom had a huge hole in one of its walls.
When Honeybits was in high school, her bus driver had a reputation for being someone you did not want to mess with. He was always so angry that the students nicknamed him Pitbull. If anyone made so much as a sound during the drive, he would stop the bus and scream at the person who did it. One time a student got on board and started making a lot of noise, which made Pitbull instantly rage. He screamed at the student and threw them from the moving bus. Nobody dared to piss off Pitbull after that, and Honeybits could not wait to get off that bus at the end of every day.
When Tolop was a kid, his parents took him shopping every Sunday, but Tolop would always run off to his favorite stores. He loved everything about shopping, except the creepy mannequins they had in the clothing stores. Tolop's dad eventually got sick of him running off all the time, so he told Tolop that the mannequins were once bad children who run away from their parents. As punishment, they lost their faces and were frozen for the rest of their lives. This traumatized the hell out of Tolop, and he spent the next couple of years doing everything he was told. He continued to believe that mannequins were cursed children until he was 16, and even today they still creep him out.
Hellbent woke up at around 2 a.m. and realized he could hear a faint music box. He got up and he went to the attic to check it out, and he found a bizarre-looking creature sitting in the moonlight. It was a tall, alien-like girl with short gray hair, a pink dress, and scars around her throat and legs. She also had no eyes, just sockets, with blood pouring out of them. She was tampering with the music box and looked up to see Hellbent. "Can you help me? Please?" Her fingers were connected and looked like claws. She had trouble winding up the music box. Hellbent just panicked and ran back to his room, slamming the door behind him.
One time when he was 14, Hellbent drank an entire can of Palm Bay, a fruit punch tasting vodka. Within an hour, Hellbent was drunk. He was so drunk that he began texting his friend song lyrics. His friend texted him back, inviting him to a party that was going on. After that, all Hellbent remembered doing was leaving his bedroom and climbing into a bathroom window. He wandered into the living room of his friend's house, seeing about 50 other drunk screaming kids. Since Hellbent thought the party was pretty garbage, he went to the garage and found a can of spray paint. Then he went into a bedroom and began to spray paint penises on the wall, floor, and ceiling, thinking it was his friend's room. The bedroom ended up belonging to his friend's parents. When his parents came home and noticed their son's party, they were pissed. Hellbent screamed like a little girl, ran to the bathroom, and climbed out the window he had previously climbed through. The last thing he remembers from that night is trying to figure out how his doorknob worked.
My friend Pringle has a messed up relationship with food. This one time his cousin dared him to down an expired yogurt drink. The drink had been sitting in the backseat of a car for a whole week during one of the hottest summers on record. It stank like hell and tasted like really sour blackberries. Oh god, poor Pringle, he never went down that dairy aisle again.
When Ladybot was in school, there were rumors going around that she vaped, She had no idea where the rumor started, but everyone started looking at her differently. Her crush eventually heard the rumor and asked her if it was true. She went along with it, hoping it wouldn't make her seem badass because she was so young. But unfortunately, her crush's best friend found it hilarious and decided to bully her every day until she graduated. It broke the ice though, and she managed to get a kiss from her crush, but it ended when she told him the truth and he left her for another vape-smoking girl.
Dolan had a lot of bullies up until high school, but the worst was in junior high from 7th to 9th grade. One day his mum had gotten Dolan a couple of green Shrek Twinkies for lunch. A student, hellbent, took them from his bag when he wasn't looking. He said,
"Oh, I'll give them back, if you pay me. Either way, I'm getting some green."
Dolan told the teacher, who forced Hellbent to give them back to him. But after that, Hellbent took every opportunity over the next 3 years to pick on Dolan. Finally, in 9th grade, during gym, he and a group of his pals jumped him in the locker room. His pals pinned Dolan against the locker while he repeatedly punched and spit in his face. When they let him go and were walking away, Dolan grabbed Hellbent from behind and slammed his head into the locker a few times until his friends pulled him off. After that, he and his friends stayed clear of Dolan for the rest of the year.
Until he was 7, Sid believed that real animals were put in mascot costumes. Then, on his 7th birthday, a friend of his told him that instead of live animals, they put dead people in those costumes. That, understandably, freaked Sid out even more than the live animals. But the lies didn't stop there. Another time, he was told that the mascots were really just genetically modified kids with low GPAs that are turned into furries. Even though Sid knows the truth about them now, he was certainly terrified when he was little.
During high school, Pringle's friends thought it'd be funny to throw a balloon full of bacon flour at him for a birthday present. He ended up getting so much flour in his eyes that he couldn't even see. After several minutes, he heard a girl scream and then felt the hard slap against his cheek. When everything came into focus, he saw the girl he had a huge crush on looking very angry. He asked his friends why she slapped him, and they said while he was looking for something to clean his eyes, he accidentally grabbed and squeezed her boobs. He was suspended for indecent behavior.
When Dolan was a kid, his neighbors were always up to something. They were always getting drunk or just being plain perverted. Whenever his dad went outside to mow the lawn, the next door's wife would always stand there, watching him. And whenever he noticed her, she'd flash her boobs at him. One time at Christmas, he gave her a polite hug, and for some reason, she licked his face. She always gave Dolan's mom a dirty look and hated her with a passion. They were pretty damned relieved when they finally moved houses.
In school, Kyle M was so bored in his typing class that he decided to raise his hand. When the teacher called on him, Kyle M said to her, "I wanted to tell you a farmer's joke, but it was corny." Nobody laughed. Nobody reacted. Some kid at the back let out an awkward cough. Even the teacher just sighed. He thought he would at least get some reaction, but he got nothing. A few seconds later, he got up and he screamed, "I'm a special snowflake, okay?" He sure got a reaction that time. His teacher gave him detention for a week.
The weirdest thing Andy ever did to impress her crush, Adam, was when they were walking together in the hallway to their second class. Andy and Adam were already best friends, so Andy decided it was a good idea to purposely trip so that Adam would catch her. She put her foot in front of his and tripped, and fell face first onto the ground. Adam didn't grab her, he just stood there in shock and laughed at her. He at least helped her up and walked her to the nurse because Andy's nose was bleeding. When Gooby was about 5 or 6, she had a babysitter who was about 80 years old. Her parents went away for a weekend holiday and left Gooby with the elderly babysitter for a few days. Gooby woke up in the middle of the night to get a glass of water when she heard a weird noise, so she decided to investigate. She went downstairs and looked outside into the garden. Lying in the middle of the grass was her elderly babysitter in complete darkness, stroking a teddy bear. She went outside to see what she was doing, and the lady just said, "What a nice day it is out here." Old people, am I right?
In 6th grade, Civil Spider was in love with one of the most popular girls in school. Even though he was a huge nerd with no idea on how to talk to girls, he decided one day to let her know how he felt. After a lot of thinking, he came up with the most epic romantic gesture he could think of, using the dictionary. He spent 2 days going through the entire dictionary finding words like beautiful and amazing. He highlighted about 20 words and left bookmarks on the appropriate pages. Then, at the end of class, he left the dictionary on her desk with a note that said, "This is what I think of you." His crush took the dictionary home and, well, she probably had a big laugh about it with her friends. She never responded or even mentioned it to Civil Spider, which totally broke his heart. He now realizes how awkward he was at flirting.
Legna was in a car with his friends. On their way back from a theme park, the drive back home was long, so they began to talk amongst themselves. He knew everyone in the car and got along well with everyone. Well, there was one guy, Spinal Palm, that Legna didn't know too well. Spinal Palm was a friend of his friend's sister. He tried to make friends with him by talking to him, so Legna started talking about what they had seen at the theme park. He brought up the time they saw a little girl run into her favorite character at the theme park and give him a big hug. That was a really cute thing they had seen, so Legna blurted out,
"That was so cute it gave me diabetes."
Spinal Palm's face went blank.
"My sister has diabetes,"
he angrily replied. The whole car was silent for the rest of the way home.
When Nixium was a kid, he had a friend who always made excuses to not hang out. After months of bugging him, Nixium convinced him to come over for a sleepover. For the first few hours it went well, and the friend was having lots of fun. But then, when they started to watch a movie, Nixium's friend suddenly jumped up and said, "I gotta go, I just remembered, I have to mow my dad's lawn!" Nixium looked at the clock and saw it was 10 o'clock at night. It's the weirdest excuse he's ever heard.
When Melissa's aunt Lisa was dying of cancer, she was crying in the kitchen about it. Her 5-year-old sister came in the room and said, "Lisa not died today, she died in the morning." The next morning, Melissa's mother woke her up to say that her aunt died at 6 a.m. Melissa asked her sister how she knew, and she said, "Oh, the girl told me so."
A few months ago, Honeybits was walking home from a friend's house at night when she heard moaning behind her. She turned around and some guy from her friend's school had his hands down his pants and was following her. Honeybits was scared, angry, and disgusted, so she whipped out the pocket knife her dad had given her years ago for Christmas that she always carried, faced him, and said, "Get the hell away from me, creep." He got his hand out of his pants, which was covered in jizz, and he backed away until he was far enough away for her to book it home, get inside, and lock all the doors. Honeybits told her dad what had happened, and they considered calling the police, but in the end, they didn't.
This one time, an elderly lady was in front of Pandora in a supermarket. She had just bought 3 carts worth of apples and then proceeded to pay with $5 bills. After the clerk gave the change, she put the change in her purse. Right after that, she started having a fit because her change was not in her wallet. The cashier, who didn't see where the change went, tried to calm the woman down, but she seemed on the verge of a complete meltdown. Another person stepped up and explained that it was in her purse, but it was clear this man didn't know how to speak English very well, so he had to resort to miming out the act of opening her purse. The woman screamed at the cashier and the man until Pandora stepped in and said that it was in her purse. The woman thanked her, said sorry to all of them, and left without her apples.
So my brother met this girl at a party and they decided to go on a date, right? While they were out, this girl's roommate sent her a text saying her cat was missing. The girl was a huge animal lover and showed my brother heaps of pictures of a missing cat. She was so distracted that my brother suggested he take her home so she could look for it. It was dark when they got to her house, but my brother offered to help find the cat. As they looked around the neighborhood, my brother was hit by a car. He ended up in hospital with broken ribs and a sprained arm. As for the cat, it was in the closet the whole time. Gergak was playing video games while riding a streetcar, and as he did so, some of the people sitting behind him were starting to get louder in the conversation. Gergak was about to tell him to quiet down, but then he caught a snippet of the conversation. One of the guys was saying how much he wished Pokemon were real. So Gergak thought for a second to, join the conversation rather than shush it. But then the guy just explained exactly how he wanted to have sex with every single member of his Pokemon team. Gergak ended up getting off at the same stop as that person, spent the next few minutes trying very hard to avoid eye contact.
The strangest thing that happened to Ladybot happened when she was working at a bar. One night, Ladybot asked an older woman what she wanted to drink, and the woman said, breadsticks. Thinking she was joking, Ladybot laughed and asked if she wanted breadsticks and water. With a straight face, the woman said she wanted a breadstick milkshake. Later that night, Ladybot was checking on another table when she noticed the woman was ripping up her breadsticks, dipping them in water, and then eating them. By the end of the night, she ordered lots of breadsticks, but no proper food. Ladybot has never met anybody else who loved breadsticks that much.